All right.
Hello.
So you're very deeply embedded in the tech world, obviously alongside the music world. What originally have you always been a geek, or is that like kind of a newer thing?
Well, I've always been interested in doing things for myself. I guess my first introduction to music technology was probably the pianola at home, which is a piece of roll of paper which plays a code which tells the piano keys what to play. And so maybe that was my first introduction into coding and computers, kind of. And then I think I love making stuff. And more recently, when I find a gap in my workflow, when a kind of, a wall that I run up against, whether it's a computer that I don't want to have to type in all the time when I'm making music, or if I see an issue in the structure of the music industry at large, then it kind of makes me want to do something about it. And the tech, it comes to the rescue.
Okay, we'll get to that, the larger music issues. First, you have these gloves. Raise your hand if you know how Imogen performs. It's very special. It's not your average concert. So very few of you. So can you explain is it MiMu?
MiMu, yeah.
Can you explain what the MiMu gloves do and how they work?
Yeah, so I have a pair of gloves. There are a few of them in the world now. We have some collaborators under the MiMu umbrella. But it began really just being frustrated about having a load of gear on stage. And I love electronic gear, and I like to play bits of electronic music. It's not all electronic, some of it's acoustic. But then the sense that you have my voice, and I have a piano, which is a real live instrument, and I can improvise freely, fluidly with that, with that instrument, or I can feel the resonance of that instrument. When it comes to electronic music, you're often stuck with these kind of rigid interfaces, and that can be a keyboard or a mouse or a fader or a button. And often when you're playing something that's very sculptural in sound, it's almost impossible to play. So those kind of lovely produced sounds that I make in the studio, and I spend hours and hours doing till 1 in the morning, are very difficult to recreate live without looking like you're just doing your emails on stage. So it was about trying to literally pull out the software, pull out those amazing tools that we have in the computer, and bring them into my hands to be able to improvise and kind of sculpt sound wirelessly.
And it's not just about performance, right? You actually create music with the gloves as well?
Yeah. I mean, it is relatively early days in the long life of the gloves. But one of our first kind of goals as a team, so we now are 8 of us on the team, but 3 years ago, I wrote a song called Me the Machine, and the idea was to get the software and the gloves hardware to the point where I could create a song entirely using gloves. Which I wouldn't do all the time, because you'd have pianos and you have lots of other nice things too. But I wanted to see what that would do to my creative process, to think gesturally, to think in movement and in space and in 3D and kind of moving through sound. And it really did change the way that I started to think about music. And so now, as I am gesticulating very much, I might also be making music. And so for me, yeah, it's just about cutting out the middlemen, really, and getting closer to the creativity, the source, and getting closer to what's in here, into my hands. And we're getting closer every day.
So you launched a Kickstarter for the MiMu gloves.
Yeah.
It almost got there.
Well, actually, we were quite a way away from it. I think we raised about half.
No, I think it was like 163,000 out of 200,000. So that's really close.
No, okay, you're right.
Props.
Yeah.
And the cost of a single glove, according to the Kickstarter page, was £1,200. So my theory is that might have had something to do with it.
Yeah, so we have an issue. In that at the moment, we are a small team, and we are, back then, developing handmade gloves. We hadn't figured out a manufacture process, and we still haven't. We're getting there, but it takes a lot of R&D and money to get to that point. So at the moment, we're slowly ticking over, and everybody people who buy pairs of gloves, we make them. It takes us a week, and for that we fund our work for the next month or so, and that's the kind of slow process we're in. So if anyone wants to invest in gloves, then come our way. But we're trying to keep it all within the UK, so that any production, we're keeping it all in the country, and to be as fair and as good as we can to the people that work with us. But really, ultimately, I think we'd like to create, a performance pair of gloves, which would be, super robust on stage. We do have issues with when, for instance, if I was doing this conference, there's like shed loads of Wi-Fi in here, and we'd be struggling to kind of sound that out with the gloves. Kind of worried that it may drop out here and there. So that's one of our biggest, fall downs, really. But at home, it's like super quick. You don't get any latency. And in small clubs, it's fine. But on a massive conference like this, we'd want to bring an extra system. So we have radio. We can use like this kind of radio and send over audio via data. And that way, we kind of use a trusted method, but it's expensive. So it's about developing that for performances, and then having a much cheaper pair of gloves for the kind of everyday home user or kind of home studio. At something under $1,000 we'd like to do for a pair. But we're not at that stage yet. But we hope to be able to do that by the end of the year, next year, if we're lucky.
So if you're wondering why she's not performing with the gloves, you can blame your own needs for Wi-Fi out there. I'm excited about the commercialization and the ability for someone to be able to buy, not necessarily low cost, but an affordable pair of gloves, create music. Because if you think about what happened with like photography, for example, in the last 10, 20 years, it used to be very expensive for someone to be able to create a photo. And it took a lot of training, the proper equipment, and now we all have a camera in our pockets, and we're all photographers. Do you see music creation going that way, and what will that take?
It already is there. You can have free software on your computer, and I mean, you can get Ableton Lite, and you can get Pro Tools Lite, and you can get lots of really amazing software in your computer. And even just GarageBand within in Apple's, it's pretty good. It's much more than I had when I was 18. So I mean, that's why we've got so much music out there. Just so much music is because everyone can make music. So everyone is a musician, everyone is a photographer, and I think really the next problem that we really have is actually just curation. Kind of how do we find the best that's out there and able to give that a fair chance of getting heard.
Did you happen to see the Disrupt Battlefield? Any of the companies?
I didn't.
You
no,
didn't?
I'm
so I'll
sorry.
just brief you real quickly. There was one company on our stage called Juke Deck.
Yeah.
And essentially how it works is you can choose like a mood and a tempo and some other things, acoustic, whatever it might be, and it'll create music, not with vocals, but instrumentals for a video, and you can determine the length, etc. So it's essentially an algorithm that's writing music instantly. Yeah. And I know that you're obviously very gung-ho on tech and the way that it marries into music. Do you think that there's ever a point, and I hate to bring up like the singularity, this is nothing close to that, but the idea that like an algorithm might one day outweigh artistry in some way?
I don't think so. But what I do think is exciting is actually where I really like the idea of giving computer music its day, like in its own genre. So there will be computer music, there will be algorithms, create music, and that will seem very human, and there already are, like things that do that.
I'm also a robot.
You are a robot, and you speak very well. And so I feel like what I would love to be able to do is to be able to write a piece of music specifically to the person who's on their computer right then, like how are they feeling through facial recognition, from their little infrared camera, be able to tell, oh, they're slightly stressed out, or oh, they're really, really happy, or they're slightly overexcited. Okay, I'm going to make music, and so me, the human, is going to input those algorithms into my Imogen Heap algorithmic musical self, and create music just for you, because I know what you like. I know how I've learned that through machine learning, watching your face and watching your moves and seeing what other music you listen to on your computer, so that the Imogen Heap computer program can make music specifically for you.
So like songs per fan?
Yeah.
I can't wait for that. So let's move a little bit just towards the greater music industry. What would you say is the single biggest, obstacle for an artist, or the single biggest problem for a musical artist in the industry right now?
Payment. Yeah.
Payment.
How to make a living. Yeah. I mean, you can make living, by touring and being really smart on social media sites and kind of spending a lot of time doing that. But that's great. But a lot of your time is then spent not doing the creative stuff that you could be doing and kind of really making great music and honing in on your skills, doing your 10,000 hours. I feel like I know there's a friend of mine called Paul Pacifico. He's the head of the FAC, the Featured Artists Coalition, a great company. And what he's saying is that so you have this circle, you've got like the artist here and the fan here. It's super, super fast to get your music to the fan, like instant. Put it up on your website, bang, there it goes. But how to get that, or on iTunes, Spotify, whatever. But then how to get it back, how to get the money back. It takes this really long process of like going through lots of different collection societies and all different people just going, oh, I'll have a bit of that, oh, I'll have a bit of that, I'll have a bit of that. And by the time it gets back to the musician, it's like super, super small amount and really not workable, not sustainable for the artist community now and not sustainable for the future. So it's all about cutting out the middlemen, again, like as in with the MiMu gloves, it's cutting out the MiMu of the middlemen of the tech and just getting straight to the source. And that's what we need for music, a fair trade music industry, so that we know that where the money's going, we know it's fair, we know it's transparent, and we can build a music system, a music service for everyone to enjoy that is fair and rich and full of data and vibrant and encourages services to build things which help the artists be the best entrepreneurs that they can be.
So you, I guess, in a way to combat this, have released Tiny Human, song about your new daughter, Scout.
That's right.
Congratulations.
Thank
it's
you.
A wonderful name, by the way. On the blockchain. And I've actually mentioned a number of times here at this conference that I am yet to quite understand the blockchain. I'm working on it. But can you explain why you made that decision and kind of how it works and how it solves that problem?
Yeah. So at the moment, we're at an amazing point in history for artists. For the first time ever in history, I really believe a revolution is going to happen. It's bubbling already, and next year it's going to take over. It is the ability for the artist to have the control and the say in what they do with their music at large. And I feel like the answer to this is in the blockchain, or at least partly with blockchain technology, the idea of a distributed ledger that is a public ledger for people to be able to see information of what is in your song, the database of that of the whole network existing, kind of growing from the ground up, enabling the artists to leverage their creative works to the best of their abilities by creating a kind of well, actually, to be honest, the thing I'm most excited about is this thing called .music. So there's a top-level domain called .music, and it's up for grabs. And there's 8 different kind of companies up trying to get that. So we've got Google and Amazon in the runnings to try and get .music. What would be really, really amazing is if this company called .music, they're actually called DOT Music, started by these 2 musicians, get a hold of that for the artist community. It means that we can build a system of fairness and transparency upon this .music layer, that we can actually empower the artists by, basically taking over those domains and building services that link in with it, creating a database from the registrars on those top level on the domains. So you would have Imogen Heap.music, and like in Whois, you could say ImogenHeap.com. You would see it had the address of who owns that and when they've had it from and all that stuff. But equally, you could have that for Imogen Heap.music, but it would go further. It would say what brands I'm interested in. So you could kind of reverse search that from brands, and then a service could be built upon that and earn money for the artist and connect you to brands. You could have information like if you're a charity, you can use my music for free, as long as it's kind of these kinds of charities. Or if you're an up-and-coming director and you don't have a deal or anything commercial yet, you can use it for free. But if you get a commercial deal, these are my terms, and embed that within the smart contracts of your music within the blockchain.
So what would it take? You said that Amazon and Google are both going for that, and you're rooting for .. What would it take for .music to win in that battle?
According to ICANN, they'll give things like .music and .film, I suppose, I don't know if there is a .film, to the right community for the common good. So if it can be deemed that there is a community out there and there's a company that represents that, or a body that represents that, then automatically it should go to them. And if it's deemed that there isn't a community that it should go fairly to, then it will go to auction, in which case, obviously, .music won't stand a chance. So if .music get it, it really is game-changing, and it means that there'll be a funding mechanism for a foundation such as Mycelia to have that database and to protect that for artists and future generations to come.
Your music right now, I know, is at least on Spotify, and I'm sure it's on other services as well. I'm almost worried to admit that I have listened to it there and do regularly.
That's all right.
Would you ever pull it off and just kind of make everything exclusively on ImogenHeap.music?
Yeah, I feel like it's not something that's going to happen overnight. The whole industry at the moment lives and feeds off the legacy artists of yesterday and now. There's no point trying to go like, okay, you lot, disappear, and we're going to do this whole thing, starting from scratch. We are going to do that because you have to imagine, in some ways, we have to create a playing field that is fair and sustainable for artists of the future, looking at technology now from the ground up, rather than trying to kind of crowbar ourselves into the unfair, opaque systems of the past, from paper statement times to the early days of the recording industry 100 years ago, and these old kind of crooked contracts that don't reflect our times. So it's about kind of slowly bringing this area into the kind of distributed blockchain-style world, fair trade world, but then also empowering and enabling artists a platform to grow from, so that they have a say in their future, where their works what their works could do for them. Like, for instance, it's my birthday tomorrow. So if it was,
happy birthday!
I know, thank you. So if I was having tomorrow, imagine in 5 years' time, or maybe next year, I might decide, you know what, I want all my music, anyone who interacts with my music, so imagine Spotify or iTunes or whoever, Ujo, or different services were feeding directly off this database that the artists basically would, through peer-to-peer networks, would hold this data, so it could be photograph, video, music, whatever, all tagged for all the musicians that are involved and everything like that. You could start to see how a really amazing industry can grow from all of this information. You could start to navigate through songs by specific words, or you could start to look through the life of a violin on one song and see who owned it and what other songs that particular violin, never mind the player, has been on. You can start to see all these kind of amazing possibilities if the data is organised and and for the common good. So I suppose, what was your question? Sorry, I've gone off on a tangent as ever.
I think you answered it like a number of times over.
Oh, okay.
So we're good. I wonder what your...
Oh, I know what I was going to say. So I can make my music for free on my birthday.
That's what you were getting at.
To.
I was remembering. It's your birthday tomorrow.
That's right. It's my birthday tomorrow, and I would like to say, anyone listening to Spotify today, for my birthday it's free. You can have it for free. It'll cost you 0.003 pence less and whatever. That would be the reality. Or I could say, all my music across all services, I want it to be free for under 16s or free for over 60s. Or today, some horrible disaster happened on the planet. I want to divert all my monies to that relief fund.
Yeah.
And that's something that you could do.
And it would be instant.
System, yeah.
Yeah. When I was reading about your kind of decision-making with the blockchain, you wrote a long post about it, and you were talking about how when you entered the music industry, things were very different. And you thought, well, if I was a new artist today, what would I do? What advice would you give an artist who is completely undiscovered and trying to, get out there and share their music with the world?
Yeah, it's really hard. I really don't envy them. I'm lucky I've had 20 years of experience and 20 years of contacts to grow, to grow a career for myself and make money through other means, not by selling music specifically. But I would say, actually, I would go, there's a company I mentioned earlier called the FAC, an organisation, they're called the Featured Artists Coalition in the UK, and the IAO around the world, slowly kind of picking up countries representative of the artists in their nations, and collectively having a voice that we can really empower artists of the future. So I'd go to the FAC if you're in the UK. And sign up, and you can get great advice, and we do workshops. I'm one of the directors of the board, and you can go to workshops and get advice, and I feel like that in a way is what also is really, really needed online, is a trusted space representative for the artists, that's just looking out for them, on all levels, like going out there. It's like, me and FAC times 1,000, just out there looking for the artists, got their best interests at heart, and no other reason to be there.
When we first asked you to join and you agreed to come on, we asked for your title. And we got like innovator, musician, producer, technologist. It was one of the longer titles that we've gotten. I'm curious, what do you want your legacy to be? Like, how do you want to be remembered? What's the defining thing that is Imogen?
That she did what she loved, and that she could dream and that things could come true. If you believed enough and you had the heart in the right place, I believe that about anything. I feel like I'm only able to do these things because I have an amazing group of people around me, and just I suppose ultimately it's something that needs to exist. Mycelia or something like that. This kind of fair trade music system. I suppose I would love to be in part responsible for something like that, because it's something I'm passionate about. But every musician out there, if you ask them, what do you think about the music industry? Most of them would just be like, oh God, take me into a little ball. It's awful. It's a minefield.
Yeah.
But at the same time, just desperate to be able to share their music. So happy, that they can reach millions of people on YouTube, and that's amazing, But that shouldn't be the best thing about it. You should be able to earn a living from sharing your music and people enjoying your music. It's not about having to get the fans or the listeners to choose. It's just about people in the music industry just making it available for them in the easiest, most fun, brilliant way possible. That's why Spotify is so successful, or iTunes or Napster, is because it just did a really good job well with the technology that it had, and it enabled people to share and listen to music, in really amazing ways then. But now, it's kind of like it's been resorted to this little MP3 with maybe a pack shot and a name and a title that's often wrong if it's kind of, shared around. But imagine if you went to listen to a piece of music, and you could kind of drill down into that data, the same way that you might on a night go onto Wikipedia and discover all kinds of things about, I don't know, Cleopatra or Henry VIII or whatever's interesting to you. I don't know why I mentioned that. It's not particularly interesting to me. And be able to really find out about that music and connect more deeply with that music. Maybe that's not for everyone, but it should be available for those who are interested. To be able to let the whole music industry, the music community, musicians, finding out who a guitarist was on a song. It's just so difficult to find out that information. It's not put on Spotify. And the reason is not because they don't want to put it there, it's because there's no global database of that information for them to scrape that from, to really empower them to have a really vibrant service. So they're kind of restricted to this. So I feel like something like this could just spark up so many amazing new platforms and services that would just enrich all of our lives who love music.
Yeah, absolutely. I could sit here and talk to you for a really long time, but I got the wave a few times, actually. My last question is, has anyone ever called you Jen?
No.
Because I was thinking Jenny from the blockchain.
Jenny from the blockchain. Jenny from the blockchain.
Something to consider. Okay. I appreciate your time.
Nice one.
It's been a true pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you, darling. Cheers.